good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you might be listening to us. You have landed on the Guambai Podcast. Guambai Podcast, Newfoundland and Labrador's trivia podcast, the podcast where the teacher schools the preacher. Guambai Podcast brought to you by Dildo Brewing Company, located in beautiful Dildo, Newfoundland, home of the Dildo sign, sister community to Los Angeles, California, thanks to Jimmy Kimmel, and home to ever popular Dildo Lager and some new beers on this Lagerfest weekend when this is dropping. A Hell Lager, a Dunkel Lager. Darryl, am I getting that right?
You got it right. Yeah, Hell and Dunkel.
Tell us about Hell and Dunkel, Darryl.
Well, Hell and Dunkel, they're two classic lager styles originating in Munich. Of course, home of lager beer, I would think.
Yeah, the Germans loved their lager.
They did indeed. The beer houses of Munich are famous, right?
Mm-hmm.
These particular brews are brewed to showcase the Dildo Brewing Company's love of everything lager.
Yes. And you know what else I heard? I heard they're encouraging people to snuggle up beside her.
They are indeed.
What's that all about?
Well, they have coming on shortly cider.
Oh, I love cider.
So the first cider that they will have is going to be called Snuggle Up Beside Her.
Oh.
And not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but I've had a little taste test.
Ooh, really?
And very, very good.
Okay,
very
folks,
excellent.
The early reviews are in. Darryl has had this snuggle up beside her and has enjoyed it. So you got to get out and get it.
It is excellent.
Well, we should really introduce ourselves. My name is Kevin. I'm a clergyman up in London, Ontario. I'm the preacher of Guambai Podcast, and I'm joined here by my brother, Darryl.
And I am Darryl. I'm a teacher, and I'm here in Waitway, Newfoundland, the motherland, as we call it.
Yep. And he's here to school me.
I'm going to try.
And then later on,
Not
I'm
easy.
going to have a go at schooling Darryl and Sandy Morris, who's our guest today, world famous in Newfoundland.
That's going to be awesome.
Can't beat Sandy Morris, boy. Wonderful grand.
Before we get started, we always do a warm up.
Yes, I don't want to go into this cold.
No, got to give you, just like, when you're going to play hockey, you got to skate around a little bit, do some stretches and that.
Yeah. I always thought stretch was what happened to my skin after I ate too many Boston cream, but okay.
You probably haven't done a lot of actual stretching. This year, decided to quiz you on a little bit of geography. So the segment is called Where's It At?
Where's it at?
So I'm going to give you a name of a Newfoundland community.
Okay.
And you've got to tell me what part of the island this particular community is located. And this particular community you may have visited. I'm not certain. I don't know if you've been to it or not. Here's the name of the community. Nameless Cove.
Oh my Lord.
Population 69.
69. Nameless Cove. Are the signs all yellow like they are at the No Frills here in Ontario?
No,
like
that's No Name Cove.
That's No Name Cove. Okay. Nameless Cove. Do I get a hint at all?
I can give you a hint.
All right, give me a hint.
It's on the island.
Well, that's.
And the second hint would be it's not really in a bay.
But it's called Nameless Cove.
Yes, but it's not in a bay. So that should be, if you think about it,
Nameless Cove.
That should give you a
Not
general
in a
area of
bay.
Newfoundland that it would be on.
I'd say it's down near Gander.
No, Nameless Cove is indeed a cove.
Yeah, but
Gander,
if it's not in a bay, where is it?
Yeah, but Gander's not. There's no coves in Gander.
Yeah, but it could be a freshwater cove.
So you don't know where it is. So I'm going to give you the answer.
Okay.
Nameless Cove is on the Great Northern Peninsula. So this particular community, there's an island adjacent to it that was called Flowers Island. There's a lighthouse there. And the first lighthouse keeper on that island was a fellow by the name of Peter Flower. So the island got named Flowers Island. And so they named the community that was adjacent to it Flowers Cove.
Yeah.
However, the municipality of Flowers Cove, which is just across the bay from Nameless Cove, was formerly called French Island Harbor.
Okay.
Once the French shore got removed and the French presence in the area disappeared, they opted to change their name. This is the municipality of Flowers Cove, that is. And they took the name Flowers Cove, thus leaving the former Flowers Cove across the bay, the smaller community, nameless.
Oh, my Lord.
And that's why they are called Nameless Cove.
So it's seriously the name of the community.
It seriously is called Nameless Cove.
Now, is it on the west coast of the Northern Peninsula or the east coast of the Northern Peninsula?
It's on the west coast of the Northern Peninsula.
Okay. Well, I feel like I had to have driven through it at least, but I had snooze.
I think you might have to just drop off the main road.
Leave off. If you are one of the, how many did you say? 69 people?
Yeah.
If you're one of the 69 people in Nameless Cove and you're listening to this podcast right now, we'd like to hear from you. Tell us about all the highlights in Nameless Cove. We'd like to include that in our next podcast.
That would be awesome. Be awesome if somebody from Nameless Cove actually listened to us.
Yeah. We have nameless listeners all over the planet. Now, what's the deal today? Like, what sort of rigmarole of foolishness are you going to take up with me today?
Well, we always got to come up with an idea for trivia. There's, as we said right from the get-go when we started this thing, there's almost a million different ideas of what you can do on Newfoundland trivia. It's amazing, really, how much that you can get into. Probably not millions. That's right, thousands for sure. So we just passed September the 11th, and of course, you know that Newfoundland played a big role in the events of November 11th with the airplanes that were diverted here. Gander, of course, most notably central Newfoundland, but also Stephenville and St. John's as well. So I thought maybe we'd have a quick peek at Newfoundland's aviation history.
Go on by.
You think that would fly?
I think it'll fly. Go
Okay.
on by. That's lame. Go on by.
Let's give her a go. See if you know anything about.
I heard a pilot. I once too many heard a pilot say that actually trying to land in St. John's. That's not what you want to hear from a pilot. I got to give it a go.
You do not in foggy conditions for sure.
No.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the beginning,
Okay.
the early days of aviation.
The Wright brothers.
Pretty close. So long distance air travel was a big, the pioneering days of long distance air travel was a big thing in the early part of the 1900s, the century that was. And the most easterly place in North America, of course, was the island of Newfoundland. And therefore, it became a center for many of these long distance trips, and in particular, trips that were designed to cross the Atlantic Ocean.
Transatlantic flight.
And as long distance flight became more commonplace and so on, people got more interested in doing this. So that's where we're going to start. Newfoundland was the site for many adventuring, pioneering aviators trying to set new milestones for flight at that time because it was so brand new. And in April 1913, the London Daily Mail offered a prize of £10,000, which I'm sure in 1913 was a tidy sum, for the first nonstop transatlantic flight between Great Britain and any part of Canada, United States, or Newfoundland. The competition didn't happen. It was suspended during the First World War, but it reopened in 1918. I may have already asked you this, Kevin, but do you know why Newfoundland was the preferred taking off point?
I'd say it was the most easterly place in North America, Darryl.
Indeed, it was. It was. It was closer to Europe than any other part of
I would
North
say
America.
if there was a way to take off from Cape St. Mary's, that's where they would have taken off from.
They would have, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, in the spring of 1919, 4 teams arrived to compete for the prize and a place in aviation history. Primarily, they were British teams, but there was an Australian and thrown into the mix. And one of the teams out of these 4 you might have heard tell of, British aviators John Alcock and Arthur Brown.
Yep.
Pretty famous. First thing I'm going to ask you, they all came to Newfoundland at that particular year, 1919, but they got delayed in getting started for 3 reasons. Can you give me any one or all 3 of the reasons why they were delayed in getting going on their trek across the Atlantic?
I would say one of them was weather.
Indeed it was. Poor weather conditions. Imagine that.
Yeah, it was shocking in Newfoundland.
Especially in the spring.
Yeah, okay. So the weather would have been one. Another one would have been mechanical.
Sort of.
What's
They
the
had
sort
to.
of part?
So, I'll give it to you, but they had to assemble their aircraft.
Right.
They were
so they had
shipped to
put
the
it
island
together.
in pieces. Yeah.
What would be the third reason? The third reason might have been a shortage of fuel.
It was a shortage, but not of fuel. It was a shortage of places to take off from. There were no airstrips
Oh,
here.
they had no airstrips.
So they had to look for suitable takeoff points.
Find a spot in Newfoundland flat enough to run a plane down around.
Yeah, a little more challenging than you might think. There were 2 unsuccessful attempts made on the 18th of May. No further attempts were made until the 14th of June, 1919, when Alcock and Brown took off from this location in St. John's. Do you know where they took off? And I'll give you some hints if you don't know right off the top where Alcock and Brown took off from.
Boy, that's a good question.
So if you haven't heard it, you probably don't. You don't know.
So give me a hint.
So it's near Mount Pearl.
Near Mount Pearl. I'll say Brookfield Farms.
Oh boy, I tell you what, you're pretty close.
Am I?
Lester's Field.
Lester's Field. Okay.
And I could only assume that it's the same area that Lester's Farm is today, right?
I had to think there's a little bit of farming community outside of there, right?
Yeah.
That'd be the only flat spot that I could think of.
Yeah. 16 hours it took them.
Oof.
And they landed nose down in a bog in Galway, Ireland.
Oh.
Not Galway, not up by Costco. And they received a prize, a lot of money. And they were knighted by King George V.
Oh, wow.
Do you know what type of plane Alcock and Brown flew in? I'll give you a multiple guess if you don't know.
Okay. Broadly, I would say it was a World War II plane, but less.
I think it might be. So was it a Wright Flyer, Vickers Vimy, Lockheed Electra, or a Fokker biplane?
I think the war one was a Fokker biplane. No,
I'm sure it sounds like a Fokker biplane. It might be a warplane, but it was the Vickers Vimy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So here's another. So Alcock and Brown, pretty famous. How about this person? Amelia Earhart.
Oh, I've heard of her.
Have you?
Yeah, she's was like the woman that sailed or flew over the Atlantic.
She did.
No, I know she got lost somewhere.
Yeah, she was on an attempt flying around the world.
Yeah.
And almost at the end of
almost did it. She was near Hawaii or California.
Before Hawaii. So she was about she was on the last leg really of her around the world trip.
Right.
And sadly disappeared with her navigator. But before that, she was in Newfoundland. Yep. Of course, there's a monument to her in Harbor Grace. Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah, I got a picture of me and our father standing next to Amelia Earhart, and Dad said she wasn't as tall as I thought she was.
Here's a question for you. How many flights did Amelia Earhart make from Newfoundland?
Ooh. I feel like it was 2.
Right on the nose. You got her. 2.
Yeah.
1928, 1932. Interestingly, the first flight, she wasn't the pilot.
No.
She was a passenger.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And what was significant about that flight? Pretty obvious, really, what significance was if you think about it.
Well, she was probably, I don't know, I'll say for the sake of it, she was the first woman to be on a plane to go across the Atlantic.
She was.
Yeah.
She was the first woman, even though she didn't fly the plane herself, she was the first one to do it.
Yeah.
She flew a Fokker F-7 aircraft in a Fokker F-7, actually. And the name of the aircraft was Friendship. In that first flight, any idea where she took off from? Well, she didn't take off, I guess.
Buddy took off. I think they took off from Harbor Grace, but could be wrong.
No, they didn't. They took off from Trepassey, believe it or not.
Trepassey. God, what the hell is down in Trepassey? How did they take off down there?
Well, must have been an airfield down there.
Who knew?
So she came back again in 1932, and this time she piloted the world's first transatlantic solo flight by a woman, which I know you knew. Mm-hmm. She took off this time, as you said, from Harbor Grace in a red Lockheed Vega.
Now you're going to ask me what the name of it was.
No. I'm going to ask you where did she land when she got across the Atlantic?
Multiple guess?
Well, okay, I'll give you one of the United Kingdoms.
I feel like she landed in Ireland.
She did. She landed, more specifically, though, she landed in Northern Ireland in a cow field near Londonderry.
Okay.
In 1932, she became the first woman, of course, and only the second person, that part I was struck by, only the second person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. So the second person to ever do that was Amelia Earhart. And of course, she won lots of medals as a result of that from her native United States. And as we mentioned earlier, she sadly disappeared in 1937 on her attempt at flying around the world. Here's another one from the vault from back in that day, the Hindenburg.
Oh, gosh.
You know anything about that?
Feel like I heard Dad talking about the Hindenburg.
Yes, he was talking about it all the time.
Yeah.
I think he must have seen it, probably.
He must have seen it or something, because I remember talking about the Hindenburg.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah, it's that big honking blimp.
It's a blimp, yeah.
It's the big thing that caught on fire and the humanity.
Yeah, in New York. It's a Zeppelin, right?
Zeppelin.
Flying,
there you go. That's the word
airship.
I'm looking for. Yeah.
And yes, Dad used to talk about it a lot. And yes, of course, very famous because of the crash in New York that was filmed on video, and it was kind of a live news reporting. So it was kind of almost like the CNN live reporting moment from the 1930s, right?
It was you brought up 9/11 earlier. It was, live TV before 9/11, right? Like,
yes,
there wasn't a lot of that sort of disaster being broadcast live.
The first time I ever heard tell of this thing was on the Waltons.
Oh God. Good night, Jim Bob.
No, John Boy was a reporter, and he was he was there.
That's right. I do remember what you're talking about.
And when I saw that on the Waltons, I had to go and check it out and find out what that was all about. It was pretty good. Did the Hindenburg ever land in Newfoundland, Kevin?
Well, that you're bringing it up tells me yes.
No, that's me trying to get you to get the wrong answer.
No, Darryl, landed in Labrador.
No, it never landed in Newfoundland or Labrador.
Okay, well, why are we talking about the Hindenburg?
But it did fly over Newfoundland.
Oh, okay. That's what it was. That's probably what Dad was talking about. I saw it go over Trinity Bay.
Yeah, absolutely. On most of its trips, it did take flight over Newfoundland. And of course, it didn't fly very high. So there are lots of pictures of the Hindenburg flying over Newfoundland. And you can just imagine now in the 1930s, Newfoundlanders, in their small communities and villages and so on, looking up and seeing this big blimp floating by.
Who would believe it?
Honest to God.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you go on the internet, you can see some great footage that one of the passengers on the Hindenburg took before, just outside of Newfoundland, as it was entering, Newfoundland area. Do you know what the pictures, not the pictures, it's video actually, film, what the film is of?
I'm going to say it's video of St. Pierre Miquelon.
That's a good guess. Not right, though.
Not correct.
No, but a good guess nonetheless. It was a video, 1937 video of icebergs.
Oh, okay.
So they were floating, they're passing by an ice
sort
field.
of getting close to the island.
Yeah. So in keeping with early flight and these pioneering flights, that Harbor Grace has an airfield, right?
Yes, indeed.
Have you ever been there?
Been up there, yes. Haven't been there for anything significant other than I drove up there and saw it one time when I was working in Harbor Grace years ago.
Oh, cool. I've never been actually to the airstrip itself. I think it's some kind of a historical site nowadays.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Do you know how far back that airfield dates? In other words, when did it open? I'll give you 4 choices on this one because it's a bit of an unfair question.
It's after 1919.
So was it 1919? Was it 1922, 27, or 32?
It wasn't 1919, or else the boys would have taken off from there instead of the farmer's field.
True.
And so the next 3 were again what?
22, 27, or 32.
I'll go with 27.
Yeah, right on. It was 1927. Summer of 1927, a group of citizens in Harbor Grace got together, brought
their rakes, shovels.
Yeah, well, they created a group, a committee, and so on, and they contributed money in a nonprofit basis. And the Newfoundland government chipped in $14,500 grant to help construct the runway, and local citizens helped out. So yes, I'm sure they did bring their rakes and shovels, and it was built in a month.
I wonder when Tor Bay was built.
Well, funny you should ask. We're going to get to that.
All right.
The airport was of exceptional quality and gained recognition worldwide. The first flight was in 1927, in August of that year. So they built it and got flying right up until right at the end of that.
Got her up and running.
Yeah. And in fact, it was only in operation for 9 years, and it did come back into use during the World War for a little bit, but beyond that, it really hasn't been used. So you asked about the St. John's or Torbay Airport.
Yep.
Before I ask you or mention when it was built, let's talk about who built it.
Oof.
Was it the RCAF? Was it the Royal Air Force? Was it the United States Air Force? Or was it the Newfoundland Commission of Government?
You said 1927 for Harbor Grace.
Oh, well, I can tell you that the Torbay Airport was built 1941.
Oh, I'd say the RAF.
Yeah, good idea, but it was the Royal Canadian Air Force.
It was a Canadian Air Force that did it?
Yeah,
well, that surprises me.
I guess the Canadian government, I suppose.
Yeah, but I would have. Yeah, okay. Well,
yeah. Here's an interesting piece. The Canadian government or the Royal Canadian Air Force favored the Torbay site. Local experts wanted to build the airport in this particular location. Do you know generally whereabouts that might have been?
They wanted to build it out on Buddy's farm in Mount Pearl.
Yeah, pretty close around Cochrane Pond. That's where they
Cochrane Pond. Yeah, they wanted to go there. There's a bit of flat land out there.
Yeah, can you imagine the difference that would have made to the landing for the fog and everything that's in the east end of?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, never mind what it would have done to the surrounding area, Mount Pearl and everything around there.
For sure. That's right. Yeah. So $1.5 million it was cost of building it. McNamara Construction were the ones that started the construction on the runway.
Wow.
And it was opened December 15th, 1941 by the Royal Canadian Air Force. And it was operated jointly by the RCAF, the Royal Air Force, and the United States Army Air Corps until 1946. It was used jointly during the war. Let's talk about the other large airport that we have here in Newfoundland. We got quite a number of airports, but the other large one is the Gander Airport.
Legendary.
This one dates back earlier than Torbay Airport. I didn't know that. 1936 construction began, even before the war, right? So that's what's a little bit surprising.
Yeah, it wasn't created for the purposes of war.
Not particularly, although obviously we don't know war was on the horizon, but started in 1936 and 37. At the time it was built, it had this distinction. Do you know what the distinction was?
1936, I would say. I mean, I don't know, but it did come to sort of symbolize the place as far as Eastern airports went. I would say it had the longest runway.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It was considered the largest airport in the world at that time when it was built, which is because I mean, similar to what you're saying.
Right up until considering history so long ago, it could accommodate aircraft that many could not, including St. John's.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. First flight, January 11th, 1938, and at the outbreak of war in September of 39, it was the only operative airport in the Maritimes, or in Atlantic Canada, I think would be more accurate to say.
Yeah.
And it became a major staging point, obviously, for the Allied aircraft going to Europe and the refueling, of course, as well of aircraft moving back and forth. Of course, North America was, the manufacturing hub for many of the airplanes that the Allies used during World War II. How many North American-built fighters and heavy bombers would you say that went across the Atlantic, flew through Gander? And I will give you...
Give me a range, for God's sake.
Yeah, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, or 40,000.
I would say 40,000.
20,000.
Okay, well,
20,000.
Half of that. If you take half of that, I'll be right.
Yeah, still a pretty amazing number when you think about it. 20,000 airplanes and bombers. Come on, man. That's
a lot of planes.
That's a lot of planes. These are not, planes, not something you can build overnight for sure. No. So in 1942, the Newfoundland government handed over control of the airport to the Canadian government, became a military airfield, obviously, and, was used for delivery of planes to the war. Gander handled 13,000 aircraft annually and 250,000 passengers, requiring a new $3 million terminal to be built. This is once, it was used as a commercial airport after the war.
Right.
Do you know the terminal that's there now? Do you know what year the new terminal was opened? Was it 1959, 63, 67, or 73?
This this could be wildly off, but I believe because of the style of it, it was 73.
So keep that in mind now, because you're right on that the style of the airport has some significance, but it was goes all the way back to 1959.
Okay. Yeah.
So the what you're talking about, of course, is the International Lounge.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's basically a world famous lounge because it's almost like it's a time capsule of architecture and furniture styles and design from that particular period of the late 1950s, early 1960s. The lounge itself was opened on June 1959 by a very well-known dignitary. Would you be able to guess who that dignitary was?
You say 59?
Yeah.
Diefenbaker?
Well, think about the significance of today.
Trudeau?
As we are recording this podcast on the day, a very significant day in history.
Sandy Morris?
Nice one.
The Queen opened the thing, Darryl.
Queen Elizabeth II opened the International Lounge.
Wow.
And interesting. I didn't realize this. I did a little bit of research on this. For many years, it served not just as a lounge for air travelers, but really a public space for local people. You could just go into the lounge out of the community. There was no security.
Pre 9/11.
Pre a long time, really. Children would hop on their bikes and head out to the lounge to pass the time. Perfect. Watch people going by, buy ice cream.
Ooh.
Play the helicopter game, or just enjoy the space. But of course, all good things come to an end, and with changes, of course, in security and that in the 1970s, that all stopped, and you couldn't go there anymore. So when it did open, though, in 1959, the lounge had the first one of these in Newfoundland, and we're going to stand to be fact checked on this one because I've always heard that it was somewhere else. But was it an ice cream stand?
No.
A mechanical helicopter?
No.
An escalator or a wall mural?
It was an escalator.
It was. Mm-hmm. According to, it had the first escalator in Newfoundland, although I always thought it was Woolworths on Water Street. But the lounge itself is considered by design experts to be the single most important modernist room in Canada. How about that?
I get tingles just thinking about it.
It incorporates, listen to this, such striking elements as a 22-meter mural painted on site.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Geometric terrazzo floors. I don't know if you've ever seen
I love a terrazzo floor.
And cutting-edge furniture by renowned Canadian and international designers. So it's
the furniture is like something you'd see on the Jetsons.
Yeah, it's quite a nice space. I've never been there myself. Have you ever been in the?
I looked through the glass.
Airport?
I was allowed to look through the glass at it because it was closed for the redo when I flew through there.
Okay, you landed there. I've never been there. I've been to the doors, dropping people off, but I've never been inside.
Yeah, no, it might have been me you were dropping off.
Could be. So it's been the lounge has been restored. Another $1.5 million apparently, and it probably looks as good as new.
What's $1.5 million between friends?
For sure. The Gandry Airport, of course, very significant, very busy airport in its day. Not so much these days, but more of a regional airport now. It was a testing site for the Concorde. I don't know if you knew that. It was an alternate landing site for space shuttles. Mm-hmm. And, of course, military planes, private jets, and so on refueled there as they traveled across the Atlantic. And it's a major air traffic control center. In fact, it controls most of the outgoing flights over the Atlantic. And in fact, 1,000 planes heading west to North America on September the 11th were handled by the air traffic controllers in Gander, for sure. So a couple of big events, I guess, emanating out of Gander. One very, very sad one, of course, was the Arrow air crash. I don't know if you remember that event or not.
I do indeed.
Yeah, this was way back in 1985. Mm-hmm. And sadly, this was a plane that was carrying the 101st Airborne Division, nicknamed the Screaming Eagles, back to their base in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. They were coming home for Christmas, basically, after a 6-month deployment in Sinai in Egypt. It was a DC-8. And of course, they stopped in Gander for refueling, as most planes at that time did. Unfortunately, once airborne, the plane did make it off the runway, but as it crossed the Trans-Canada Highway, it crashed just really on the other side of the highway. Do you know there was an investigation held, and of course, sadly, there was 248 passengers and 8 crew members who died in that particular tragedy. Do you know from your memory of this event, after they did the inquiry, what was the official cause of the crash as determined by the Canadian Aviation Safety Board?
Feel like it had to do with icing and de-icing.
Yes, indeed it was. That was the official cause. It was ice on the wings. They said that conditions were favorable for icing at that time, and there was no de-icing done on the plane. Where it took off.
Sad.
Here's the thing, though. Out of the 9 officials, there was 4 who dissented on this decision. And they asserted that there was no real evidence to prove that icing was the issue. And there was what they felt some evidence of an in-flight fire that may have resulted from detonations of an undetermined origin brought about the system's failure. So there's a hint, at least, that it could have been some type of a terrorist attack. And I think there was a particular terrorist group who did take some responsibility, although never really proven. There's a memorial just outside of Gander at the crash site. Have you ever been there?
I have.
Beautiful, beautiful memorial for sure. Very
moving place to stand.
Indeed it is. Do you know what the name of the memorial is, seeing you've been there? Can you remember?
I believe it's called Silent Witness.
Indeed it is. It's called The Silent Witness, and it's by a Kentucky artist. Of course, the 101st Airborne were from Kentucky. And it's just above Gander Lake. The Silent Witness Memorial depicts an American soldier standing atop a massive rock holding hands of a civilian boy and girl. Each child is holding something in their hands. Here's your trivia question on that. What are they holding? I'll give you 4 choices.
Okay.
Is it a Christian cross?
No.
An olive branch? A balloon? Or a toy eagle?
Maybe it's a balloon.
No.
Toy eagle? I might get
You're down to 2. I
got through the whole list now.
You're down to 2. An olive branch or a Christian cross?
Maybe it's the olive branch. I mean, it's
okay. You got it now.
It's 20, but to be clear, it's got to be 20 years ago. I stopped and saw that. In fact, I will say this: I stopped and I saw that with your son Matthew when I was driving across the island. So that's at least 24 years ago. Okay.
Well, he's been there twice because we stopped with him once as well.
Yeah.
The answer is an olive branch, and it's indicative of the peacekeeping mission that they were on. And that's the tie-in there. What about, do you remember the airplane that used to be on display at the entrance to the Gandry Airport?
Oh, yeah. We had to drive up and see that from the highway on our trip to Pilley's Island.
We did indeed. We used to always stop there. Do you know what kind of plane it was? I'll give you a couple guesses.
Was it a Spitfire?
Well, that was one of the guesses. So
not a Spitfire.
It's not a Spitfire.
Give me your guesses. Give me the other
3. I'll give you two more. You can pick one or the other. You got 50-50 chance. Was it a Hudson bomber or a B-52?
No, it would have been a B-52.
No.
It was a Hudson bomber.
It was a Hudson bomber, yeah. Well, no, it's a Hudson bomber.
I do remember seeing the plane.
You got your picture taken there a good many times, but it was a Hudson
definitely.
bomber. Yeah, it's not on a pedestal anymore, but it's at the Aviation Museum in Gander. Okay. It's one of the few remaining Hudson bombers in the world, and it was brought there during Canada's centennial year, 1967. Wow. A group of volunteers erected the monument there. So yeah, it was erected as a monument to the crews, of course, of the Royal Air Force Ferry Command, bringing the planes that we mentioned earlier across the Atlantic. 9/11.
9/11, big day.
Perhaps Gander is probably more well known now worldwide, or as much anyway, for 9/11 as anything. And of course the Broadway musical that goes with that. Did you see it?
Twice. Yep.
What'd you think?
Loved it. Very emotional.
What was your favorite part?
I think for me, the favorite part was just the feeling in the room at the end, both times, that it was incredible to me that an entire auditorium of people were spontaneously on their feet, clapping in unison, singing along. I've seen a lot of musicals over the years since I moved to Ontario, and there's few that I've seen that can actually evoke that sort of spontaneity from people. People were really engaged. I found that impressive.
Yeah, I bet. And very emotional as a Newfoundlander.
No, I was overtaken, to be honest. Like, it's like, woof, this is a lot. Oh dear, I'm not crying. You are.
Yeah.
So,
well, I unfortunately didn't get a chance to see it live, but did watch it on the Netflix, I suppose you could say.
yes, that or Disney. One of them put it up live, didn't they, during the pandemic?
Disney. Was it Disney? Yeah.
Disney, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Gander International Airport, of course, was the first North American airport on the transatlantic route, and it took in a large number of planes heading primarily to U.S. destinations. How many planes did Gander take in on that day? Let's see if you were paying attention both times you were watching Come From Away.
Give me a range.
Between 30 and 40.
I say 38.
You were paying attention. It was 38. Do you know how many passengers and crew had to be accommodated? 4,400, 5,500, 6,600, or 7,700?
That's a tough one. I think I'll say 6,600, but
boy, I'll tell you what, it's a good thing you watched that twice.
Well, the first time I wasn't paying attention.
I'm thinking beer. You wouldn't have got these right if you only watched it once.
Well, I'm a bit stunned, to be fair. So
right, the population of Gander at the time was just under 10,000.
Oh, 10,000. Okay.
So it was almost as many people came in there as so really doubled the population.
It's wicked when you think about it.
John Chrétien, of course, Prime Minister at the time, stated that there were more people at the airport than in the town.
Yeah.
And of course, we know it's a great story of human kindness that was embodied in the hospitality of the residents of Central Newfoundland on September 11th. And for that, it might be a great place to stop our little peek into the rich aviation history of the province, because what better place to stop any trivia show than on an idea or act of kindness?
Can't beat it, buddy. They were all good on 9/11.
No, it's the idea of when people are in need, you reach out and help them and give them some assistance, and I think the world could use a little bit more of that. I think
definitely. And you know what? One of the things that was most impressive to those people, and what gave rise to the musical, was the nature of Newfoundland folklore and art and music, and how they were entertained. And that's my little segue to say, we got a guy coming on here now for World Famous in Newfoundland, who is an incredible performer who for over 50 years has been on the music scene in Newfoundland and Labrador, in Sandy Morris. And one of the things that you can't avoid when you watch that Come From Away Broadway musical is just the influence of culture and music and everything on those who visited. So good questions today, Darryl, but now it's time for me to turn the table on you and see what you know when you go up against Sandy Morris. And it is time for our segment, World Famous in Newfoundland. And I'm not sure there's anybody more world famous in Newfoundland than Sandy Morris. Darryl, could you give us an introduction to our special guest today?
Sandy Morris is known to his musical friends as the easternmost guitar player in North America. He's an accomplished and multi-talented musician, producer, and engineer based in St. John's, Newfoundland. Picking up his first guitar at the age of 15, Morris has made his living as a versatile and ingenious performer since 1965. An original member of the legendary Wonderful Grand Band, his most recent collaborations include Rasa with Erin and the 8-track Favorites. Sandy Morris has contributed his own compositions, his performances, and his musical expertise to film and television projects for more than 30 years. His credits include serving as musical director or producer for Land and Sea, Violet, Tommy, East Coast Music Awards, and Codco, among many other projects. In addition to his own projects and featured appearances, he continues to perform with numerous other musicians on their recordings and live performances. Welcome, Sandy, to the podcast.
Thank you so much. That's a long introduction.
It is too. I got to say, and I think what I saw online last week, were you not back in a group of like Newfoundland Traveling Blueberries or something like that, or the Newfoundland Highwaymen? Is that what it's called?
Oh yes, yeah. That's a show coming up. We've done it before. It's the Highwaymen.
Right. You got Chris Andrews in there.
Chris LeDrew, Pat Moran, and Bob McDonald, maybe.
Oh yeah.
I think, yeah, and myself, and Brian Way, and I don't remember Scott Mansfield playing drums. It's a great band, great show.
It's awesome. And Sandy told me.
You know where the name Easternmost guitar player came from?
Yeah, I'd love to know that actually.
I did a series of concerts with Anita Best at Cape Spear.
Oh,
the easternmost place in North America. And I did that for a number of years. And I think it was actually Paul Kinsman said, "You're the easternmost guitar player."
That's how to put you there. Now, before we started recording, Sandy told me he can't remember what he played last week. And then I turned around and asked him about a show with
Jamie. I remember that one.
Yeah, but you remember that one. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
But listen, people are always coming up and saying to me, remember that time you played wherever, whenever, and
who knows?
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to take a shot in the dark on this one, Sandy. I'm here in Whiteway, Trinity Bay.
Oh, really? Yes.
And I'm thinking, I'm watching the intro to Land and Sea when you're playing on the shoreline there, and I'm thinking you're just inside the Shag Rock. Is that correct?
Absolutely, that's right.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. We stayed in the motel there with Blazing Cottage, whatever it is.
Oh, Blazing Horizons.
Yeah.
Barb Brown.
And just went out back, basically. And I shot over at Sunset there. That's the third version of the opening that we've shot. But it was a great place to do it.
I might say, not biased in any way, I think it's the best one.
I agree.
Oh, I think so too. I'm really interested in that area. I found out my father's people came from Lower Island Cove.
Oh, is that right?
Right. And that's my first indication that I have roots around the bay.
Okay. So it didn't all come from Henry Street?
No, but that's where I grew up. And that's my father grew up in St. John's and his father grew up in St. John's. But my great grandfather moved from Lower Island Cove to town.
Well, fantastic.
Right? Yeah.
Well, I'm, us Whiteway folks, we're glad to see you do that. And that, how can I hear Sandy Morrison? Immediately, the music that comes to mind is Land and Sea. All right. So here's the way this is going to work. I'm going to flip a coin in a minute so you can decide who goes first. And there's going to be 5 categories. Okay. The first one is Newfoundland geography. And by that, I mean Newfoundland geography, the island itself. Okay. We're also going to have a category on the big land on Labrador. Some questions there. We'll also have a category Newfoundland or St. John street names. Another category called Sons of Erin. Have you heard of them?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you've heard of them. Okay, good. And then the last category is Let Me Fish Off Cape St. Mary's, which is about Cape St. Mary's, actually, less than about the song. But there you go. Yeah. So we're going to flip a coin here. I flipped a coin. Call it heads or tails.
Heads.
Heads it is. You get to go first. So your categories, again, are Newfoundland, the island geography. You got your Labrador, street names of St. John's, and the Sons of Erin, as well as Let Me Fish Off Cape St. Mary's.
Well, why don't we start with street names of St. John?
Here is a question for Sandy. All right. Located in the west end of the city, this street, formerly known as Cockpit Road, was given its name by council in 1928. The area was the West End country residence of Dr. William Carson, and he kept his horses on his estate, which he named after Mary Stuart's castle in Scotland. This estate's name was given to the avenue, now known as
Okay. Yeah.
Cordage Avenue, Balmoral Castle, Cashin Avenue, or Craig Miller Avenue.
I'm going to say Craig Miller Avenue.
You know what, Sandy? That is absolutely correct. Craig Miller Avenue is the right answer.
You know why I picked that?
Why?
Because I've always asked, who name of God was Craig Miller? I've never known until tonight. That's so cool.
I thought he was the fellow who built St. Mary's down on Craig Miller Avenue, but I didn't know. What do I know?
I live right behind Craig Miller Avenue, so I'm on Cornwall Crescent. And,
well, there you go. You're right there.
I look down over my hill and there's Craig Miller.
Yeah.
Whoever he was. Now I know who he was. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Darryl, this one's for you. How long is Craig Miller Avenue? No, I'm kidding. So the street, to be technical, it's called a place in terms of the street name, such and such place, is named after a prominent St. John's family one of whom for many years operated the Big Six on Water Street. This street is located just off Doyle Street. Who ran the Big Six, Darryl? And I'm not giving you multiple guess. I'm sorry.
The Big Six. That sounds like a pop drink or something. I don't know.
No. Sandy,
That's
tell them
Big
what the
Eight.
Big Six was.
Big
Sandy,
Eight.
you know what the Big Six was.
Oh, indeed I do. It was a store down on Water Street.
Yeah, sold everything, didn't they?
I believe so, yeah. And I find, yeah, I'm trying to remember. The London used to have one of those suction cup things that, you put your money in it and it gets sucked up to the office. And I'm trying to remember if JM Devines did too, or the Big Six, rather.
Yeah.
I think it might have too, yes. But
Yeah. Darryl, what do you think?
Well, you must have a multiple choice for me too.
I don't. No, you're not getting multiple choice. I'll go back to Sandy if you don't know the answer. You're my older brother. I get to do this.
Well,
I
I never heard tell of the Big Six, and so there's no way I'm gonna be able to give you a guess out of the blue. So
was it JM Devine?
It was JM Devine
Yeah,
Street.
thought so. Yeah.
There you go. Sandy is
The
Two-
Big Six, once a number, now an institution, was their that was their marketing.
that was their ad, wasn't it? Once,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Once
So
a number,
where's-
now an institution.
where's Divine Street?
Devine Street is just off of Doyle Street. If you know where that is, Darryl.
No, I don't.
You know where
Where
Doyle
Doyle-
Street is, Sandy?
I don't really know.
No. Okay. Well, that's what I learned off of the City of St. John's webpage.
I know where Boyle Street is, but I don't know where
No, Doyle Street is. All right. Well, so far Sandy is crushing Darryl, which gives me incredible joy. so we should give Darryl a chance to pick a category. Darryl, you got your geography of Newfoundland, you got your Labrador, and you've got Sons of Erin, and Let Me Fish Off Cape St. Mary's.
Wow. Let's go with geography of Newfoundland.
Okay. All right. Good for you. Darryl, Newfoundland has a landmass of 108,860 square kilometers. For comparison purposes, Baffin Island is 507,451 square kilometers. Where does the island of Newfoundland rank in Canada in terms of size? Is it as far as islands go? Do you want multiple guess?
I do, yes.
Okay. So is it second largest island in Canada? Is it the third largest island in Canada, the fourth largest island in Canada, or the fifth largest island in Canada? I feel like I'm getting soft giving them multiple guesses on this, Sandy.
I'm going to go with the second largest.
The second largest? Okay,
Yes.
that would be wrong. What about you, Sandy? What do you think?
Third largest?
Third largest? That would be wrong too. It's the fourth largest island.
Really?
Yes, it is the largest island outside the Arctic
Outside here.
in Canada. Any guesses on this? Is just for fun for the both of you. Where does it rank in the world in terms of size of islands?
11th?
11th is a good guess. What do you think, Darryl?
No, 13th.
Oh, you're getting closer to it. It's the 16th largest. Newfoundland is the 16th largest island on the planet. All right. So in that category, we go to Sandy. At 543 square kilometers, this lake is the largest on the island of Newfoundland. Within the lake, there's an uninhabited island, the 18th largest lake island in the world. What's the name of this lake that's the largest one in Newfoundland?
Grand Lake.
Oh, Sandy nails it for another one up on Darryl. Darryl knew that one too, I bet.
No, I was going to say Sandy Lake.
Okay.
Right handy to it.
Right handy to it. It is handy to it, actually. It's a part of the same water system.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yep. So that's a good answer. Okay. Sandy, we're going to go back to you now. You're choosing between Labrador. You're choosing between Sons of Erin or Let Me Fish Off Cape St. Mary's.
Let's do Labrador.
Labrador.
So
here's the deal. Labrador is named after João Fernandes Lavrador, a Portuguese explorer who sailed along the coast of Labrador in between 1498 and 1499. What does the name Labrador mean? And if you need multiple guess, I'll give it to you.
I would have to get multiple guesses. I don't know.
Okay. Here's your multiple guess. What does the name Labrador mean? Does it mean farmer? Does it mean fisher? Does it mean washer? Or does it mean miner?
I'd say it means Fisher.
That's not the correct answer, Sandy.
No, but
What about Darryl? Do you know what Labrador means?
I'll go with farmer.
Farmer is the correct answer.
yes, what?
They probably didn't realize how cold
they
it was.
never clearly didn't get off the boat.
And it must have been like the middle of July or
Yeah.
early August or something.
Nobody got off that boat. Okay, so Darryl, this is your question about Labrador. Nunatsiavut is an autonomous area claimed by the Inuit people. The Constitution was ratified on December 1st, 2005. A current initiative of the people there, along in cooperation with the Government of Canada and a variety of other agencies, is an initiative called Nunatsiavut, which means let's find them. Let's find them. What is Nunatsiavut all about?
I don't know is my answer, but I'll take a stab at it.
Yeah.
Does it have to do with residential schools?
No.
Oh, okay.
At this point, I have to say you got it wrong, and I need to go to Sandy.
Oh.
Now, the exact question is, what does Nunatsiavut, I believe is how it's pronounced, which means let's find them, which is a current initiative. It's a joint project between the people of the government there, the Government of Canada, a variety of Inuit organizations, and it means let's find them. What is it in reference to? Oh, well, is it in reference to the missing and murdered Indigenous women?
No, both important issues that need to be addressed, both of them. But this one in particular is about tuberculosis. A lot of Inuit contracted TB and were sent south for treatment. And while many of them came back, a good number of them did not. And for many of their families, they have no idea where or if or when they died or where they're buried. And there's an initiative as well as funding and opportunities for people to try and locate those graves and reconnect with their lost ancestors. And there's art projects and opportunities for people to contribute and so on. It's an important initiative up there right now that we should all learn more about, I would say. So, all right. We are back to the most easterly guitarist in North America, Sandy Morris, to choose a category. So far, we've knocked off Labrador and the geography of Newfoundland. So now we're looking at Sons of Erin. And Let Me Fish Off Cape St. Mary's.
Let's do something. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and did we do St. John Street names? We did. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Craig Miller.
Yes, Craig Miller. Yeah.
I know, man. No, I know. I can't wait. I got people.
Now you know.
Wait to tell them.
Next time you're out for cocktails, Sandy, just be sure to tell people it's an estate. It's named after a castle in Scotland. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you get to pick between Sons of Erin or Let Me Fish.
Let's go with Sons of Erin.
Sons of Erin. Okay. All right. Sandy, Ralph O'Brien just celebrated his 82nd birthday last week.
He did indeed. Yes, boy.
Yep. And of course, in honor of that, I felt we should have a question about the Sons of Erin for each of you today. So in the late 1960s, roughly 68, 69, Ralph O'Brien, having moved to Canada from Ireland, formed the band which we all love and revere, the Sons of Erin, with three other natives of Dublin. They were all from Dublin, and they were in Toronto, interestingly, at the time, before they moved to Newfoundland.
That's right.
Can you tell me who those three artists are?
I believe Dermot was one of them. Dermot O'Reilly was one. Oh God, was Bobby O'Donovan one of the originals?
No. Keep going, though.
Yeah, I mean, were any of the other Ryan's boys, Fergus or
Fergus O'Byrne was one of them.
I guess Fergus and Dermot, but I haven't got the third guy, and I may not remember. Oh, it wasn't Johnny Cameron, was it?
No. Also, good guess though. A lot of these guys ended up being alumni there, to be honest, at your neighbor.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember. Boy, I don't.
Darryl, what do you think? Do you know who the fourth was?
No.
No. It wasn't a fellow named Brian, was it by any chance?
No. What about what do I get? How do I give you a hint here? Well, the formal name is Garrett.
Gary O'Driscoll. No, not Gary O'Driscoll.
Gary Kavanagh.
Gary Kavanagh. Yeah, no, I didn't know.
No. So he was the fourth.
I remember the boys from back then because I was playing the same circuit with a band called the Garrison Hill.
Oh, there you go.
When those guys and when Ryan's came and did, because we'd all play the Strand and we'd all play the Old Mill and we'd all play the same bar circuit, right? So
yeah, tell us about that, about the Garrison. Those must have been crazy days, eh?
Garrison Hill was what? Oh, fabulous. It was just, it's the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, the cool thing was you could actually make a living as a bar musician.
Right.
And there was enough of a touring circuit in Canada that you could actually play across the entire country if you had the right connections and knew who to call.
Right.
But we would get a lot of bands from Halifax, a lot of bands from Montreal and Toronto, a lot of bands from Boston who would play the bars. They'd go from Port aux Basques, Stephenville, Corner Brook, Grand Falls, Gander, St. John's, and then all the way back again. Right?
Well, and if you think about those four guys, they formed in the kitchen in Toronto and played a few bars there, and then they ended up all moving to Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Because that's where they could make a living. You
could make a living. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I suppose the Strand was the place to be back in those days.
Strand was very popular. I'm so surprised. We were talking about it today that nobody has since opened a bar called the Strand in the Avalon Mall.
Right.
Because I mean, I don't think the name will be copywritten.
No.
But it's got such a, there's such a vibe about that era and that bar that I think it will be popular.
Ralph O'Brien tells a story actually about the Strand, saying that people would come in the middle of the day and order lunch and sit there so that they'd have a table.
Sit there and wait for the show that night
before they would come on.
Too. Absolutely, people would go.
Same with the wonderful Grand Band, I bet.
Oh, big time! Yes, absolutely. And I said the guy that owned or managed the place was a fellow named Jerry Schaaf, and I said to him one day, Jerry, you should see that lineup out there, man. They go all the way to the front door. He said, Sandy, none of those people are paying cover charge or buying beer.
That's right.
I don't care how many people are in the lineup.
It's great for you fellas as performers, though, right? Like you got a full house. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's great. Current members, by the way, Jason Sims, Joe Tompkins, John Baria, and Burley, and Stephen Best.
Steve Best. Okay.
Yeah. Those are the current members. What's incredible, that's over 50 years now that Ralph O'Brien's had that troupe going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Wow. Great.
Yeah. So, Darryl, over the years, the lineup of the Sons of Erin, as we know, has seen many great musicians come and go. Those great musicians graduated, if you will, if we can use that word, they graduated from Sons of Erin and went on to, in some form or another, to be in other incredibly good Newfoundland bands that were favorites. And Ralph actually said that he saw the Sons of Erin as a tree that laid seeds to legendary bands. Darryl, I wonder if you can name 3 bands with people in them that came through the Sons of Erin that went on to some notoriety.
Oh boy, you got me on this episode, Kevin. Not areas of any of my knowledge.
I'll rattle off some bands then, Darryl. You can tell me if you think.
Well, no, I'll take it.
Have a go. Have a go.
I've got to come up with 3 bands.
3 bands. There are more than that, actually. There are more bands than that have people in them that were with the Sons of Erin at some point or another.
Okay, let me Shanneyganook.
No, but I'll give you that one because if it weren't for Ralph, who owned Erin's Pub and had both Chris and Mark Hiscock, Chris Andrews, former guest on the podcast, and Mark Hiscock, both double booked. And instead of sending one of them home, put the 2 of them on the stage at the same time. And we have Shanneyganook because of that. So I'll give you that one.
Okay. Well, how about the Wonderful Grand Band?
No, but they did get their start there in Erin's Pub as well. So Ralph had a big part to play in that as well. But none of them played in the Sons of Erin. What about you, Sandy? Sandy knows it.
Ryan's for sure.
Yes, right? Ryan's fancy with Fergus O'Byrne and
But other than that, because there were so many alumni, I could never.
Well, one of the great stories is that they played in Beta Verde.
Did they?
Yeah, they played. The Sons of Erin's played down in Beta Verde, and an 18-year-old kid with his accordion got up on the stage and played with them.
Of course, that'd be Darcy.
You know who that is?
That Darcy,
yeah, Darcy Broderick.
Darcy Broderick,
who went on to be in the Irish Descendants, and the Fables. And another one that is quite big out of there, as well as Ryan's fancy, is Sullivan's Gypsies.
Yes,
yeah. So, and there are more, but those are sort of some key ones. So, all right. Well, I think I'll give you a draw both on that one because Sandy wasn't sure on all the original members either. So I'll give you a draw on that question. Yeah. That's you both get par on that one, I guess. So the last category, Darryl, over to you for the first question is let me fish off.
I haven't gotten one question right yet, so here's my last chance.
Let me fish off Cape St. Mary's.
Yes, I remember that song well. From
You
grade
know the
9.
song, so you know the place, right? Cape St. Mary's. You been there?
Cape St. Mary's, been there several times. Yes.
Okay, good. Well, this will be no problem for you, Darryl. So the main feature or home of most of the birds that are actually at Cape St. Mary's is called Bird Rock. You've seen it?
I have.
Yep. Spectacular view of Bird Rock is just at the cliff's edge, just a few hundred meters from the rock itself. So, Darryl, that rock is a particular geological landform found elsewhere on our beautiful island. The landform is characteristically, it consists of a steep and often vertical column or columns of rock in the sea near a coast formed by wave erosion. These are formed over time by wind and water, a process called coastal geomorphology. You may have actually seen some on your walk on the Skirwink Trail as well.
Indeed, I have. And geez, I better get this one right. I am a geography teacher.
Yep.
So I'm going to say it's a sea stack.
Correct. Darryl gets one right for the win. It's a sea stack. Of course, I'm glad you got it because Sandy knew the answer, didn't you, Sandy?
Of course.
All right. So yours is a little different. Yours is about the birds, Sandy.
Okay.
You've been to Cape St. Mary's, presumably?
Oh, yes. Indeed,
Okay. All right. So Cape St. Mary's is home to one of North America's largest seabird colonies. Pardon me. There are 24,000 northern gannets who call Cape St. Mary's home. But there are more than gannets to love when you go out there and look. There are many, many different birds who nest there. Can you name a couple of them?
Murres.
Yep.
Turs, puffins.
Yeah.
I don't know more than that, but I'd have to think. I have to use my brain.
Use your brain. Come on, man.
Yeah, right.
So there's 20,000 turs out there, the common murre.
Yeah.
But there's 20,000 of another very prolific bird out there too.
Are they the cormorants?
No, not cormorants. There are razorbills and black guillemots, but the 20,000 are of something else. Darryl, what do you think? You'll both know when I tell you.
What are the ones that dive?
Yeah, those are the sterns, I think, aren't they? Like, I don't know what they.
Yeah, you mentioned the.
Those are the gannets, right?
Gannets. Yeah, that's right. That's what they are.
No.
Yeah, I should know this, but I'm drawing a blank.
Okay, so the 20,000 black-legged kittiwakes.
Kittiwakes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, the kittiwakes are really, really popular right there too. Like I said, there's 24,000 gannets, but there's 20,000 kittiwakes, and those are quite impressive to watch as well.
I wonder if Kittiwake was Craig Miller's wife's name.
No, that was what he said to her at night. Kitty, you awake?
Right. Keep you awake, Kitty.
Well, listen, you've done well by my calculation. Sandy, you won. You soundly defeated Darryl, and I have to say, because of Pauline Thornhill, mostly. If you listen to the last few episodes of this, if you're regular listeners, you'll know I've been pretty soft on our guests, but I really came at Sandy with some questions, and I'm quite impressed with your knowledge and how you came up with it. Not so impressed with Darryl, but that gives me my own form of joy.
Just don't ask me to remember a gig. That's all.
Fantastic. So tell us, what do you got coming up next?
Coming up now in October, I got a couple of tours. One we're doing Kenny and Dolly. Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers with Bob McDonald and Natalie Noseworthy. And then at the end or closer to the end of October, we're doing the Highwaymen.
Wow.
One you mentioned, Highwaymen tour with the boys there and going across the island with that, and then playing Holy Heart here in St. John's. That's October. November is still being drawn, but December is really busy with Christmas shows. Shelley Neville's Christmas show. Rasa does a Christmas show every year. Feast of Combe will probably happen this year in January.
Wow.
So, things are starting to get back to like
I was going to say, it must feel good to get back to it. I mean, I'm sure it's been a long couple of years for you guys.
It's fun to be in front of a crowd of people playing music again. It's fun, for sure.
You're not ready for retirement.
Oh, God, no, not at all. I don't see, what would I retire to? I already don't work for a living.
Well, listen, we can't thank you enough for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today, Sandy. We appreciate this, and we wish you all the best in your many endeavors. Darryl and I can pinch ourselves for talking to, as we
It's
say,
great fun. Boys,
people
great
world famous in Newfoundland like yourself.
fun. I love the world famous Newfoundland expression. Hey, thanks, guys.
Darryl, Sandy Morris, my goodness, have a fellow who's what hasn't he been involved in the last 50 years of music to come on here and join us? Very grateful. Thank you, Sandy.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Sandy. Great bit of fun.
Great bit of fun, and he really trounced you, which I really liked. But I feel like it's going to come back to me in spades because now I got to do the lightning round.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get some revenge here on this one because I think these 10 lightning round questions, I don't think they're gonna be that easy.
No, I don't think they are either. So,
so here we go. So lightning round questions are all about our topic for today, of course, which is Newfoundland aviation history.
Okay. All right. Lightning round, aviation history. Start the timer. Let her rip.
Kevin, what was the name of the American Air Force Base in Stephenville?
Stephenville Air Force Base.
No, Harmon Air Force Base.
Harmon, that's the name of the golf course. I should have known that.
Exactly.
Yes.
All right, number 2. When is Come From Away having its last show on Broadway?
Next week.
Close. October 2nd.
That's next week.
No, it's not.
By the time this goes to the air, that's next week.
Number 3, in 1953, a B-36 Peacemaker aircraft crashed into a mountain on the western side of Trinity Bay, just north of this community. All 23 crew members were killed. What's the name of the community?
Little Heartsease.
Burgoyne's Cove. What famous Canadian research doctor died in a plane crash during World War II near Musgrave Harbor?
Dr. Spock.
Dr. Frederick Banting.
Oh, come on. Really?
Yeah. In what Newfoundland lake did researchers recently discover a World War II era B-24 Liberator bomber that crashed in September of 1943?
I think they found our wheels up in Gander Lake.
Gander Lake, yes. How many passengers passed through the St. John's International Airport in 2019? That would be the year before the pandemic.
105,000.
For the full year, 1.43 million.
Ooh, baby. Newfoundland's busier than I thought.
Yes, it is. How many runways does the Deer Lake Airport have?
2.
Just 1, but it's 5,000 feet long. Did the Beatles land in Gander?
Yes.
They did. In fact, they landed in Gander before they landed in New York City. What very Canadian activity did Fidel Castro participate in when he landed in Gander for a stopover?
Hockey.
He went sledding with local children.
Oh.
There's a DC-3 plane in Harbor Grace donated by the Pike family as a memorial to Harbor Grace's rich aviation history. What is the airplane's nickname?
The Spirit of Harbor Grace.
You got it. You pulled it out at the end. You salvaged it at the end by getting that one right.
Oh, well, thanks be to God that's over.
I said that one was going to be a hard one.
You weren't kidding. Well, look, I just actually find this very interesting. I think a lot of people don't understand the rich history of aviation in Newfoundland and Labrador. For those who are aviation buffs, I think they'll find this episode very interesting. What can we say about Sandy Morris? Land and Sea, wonderful grand band. God knows how many other the Garrison Hill Boys he talked about, all that stuff. Great Newfoundland musician. Thankful to him for being on. That was fun, Darryl?
It was indeed. And he trounced me, but that's okay.
Many thanks again to all of you for listening, to you, Darryl, for getting all those questions together. And of course, to our guest on World Famous Newfoundland, Sandy Morris. And how can we end this without thanking our friends at the Dildo Brewing Company who are busy sidling up beside her, getting ready for their cider release, the people in the Dildo Brewing Company. So thank you for that. There's lots to look forward to in episodes to come. In the meantime, there's nothing left to say but
One by.